Hi everyone, welcome back. Hope you guys are having a great day. So this is a clip from a previously recorded video. This is a much shorter clip of it. But as always, not financial advice, for entertainment only. Do your own research. And I'm invested in closing companies. And if you enjoy this type of content, hit the like button, subscribe, helps me out tremendously. And let's get into the clip. And then let's take a look at actually what it would cost or what the miners were generating last year compared to this year in BTC production. So today at lunch, when I was thinking about this stuff, one of the things I wanted to take a look at, what was the network, well, not the network, but what was the reward that the miners were getting for like the average 100 terahash miners? And looking back at last year, comparing it to this year and what that difference is, and where would Bitcoin have to be for it to be the same amount, right? Last year in 2022, more towards the beginning of the year, they were getting really good revenue per day per miner. And I wanted to see what it would be like if we went back to that price. What would Bitcoin have to be in 2024, 2025 potentially? Okay, so I'm going to try to explain this as best I can. Hopefully it all makes sense here for you guys. So here's what we got. April of 2022, Bitcoin price was around 41,400, which is right here. And then the 100 terahash miners on a daily revenue averaged about $16.49, which is really good. Then if we look at April now, 2023, Bitcoin price right now is on average about 29,000 and some change here for the month so far. It's obviously come down a little bit, but the average is around 29,000, and the average per 100 terahash miner is about $7.62, right? Up or down a little bit here, but right around that range. So that is a pretty big difference here between what we had just a year ago and now. Two things obviously happen here. Bitcoin price has come down. From then, we've also had the network hash rate increase quite substantially as well. So if we look at some of the numbers here that we have here, let's see here, this one was, yeah. So Bitcoin price is down about 12.4 thousand from a year ago from where it was. That's about a 30% decrease in price on that one. But also, if you look at just the revenue here between these two, it's down about $8.87 per miner, and that's a 53% decrease from it. So one attribution to it is obviously the Bitcoin price is down, but the network hash rate is also up as well. So that's where you have the combination of 53% decrease in it because of both price coming down and network hash rate going up. Okay. And if we wanted to get to the same price per miner or the same revenue per miner as we had last year, Bitcoin would have to be right now about $64,250 in change, up or, plus or minus a little bit here, but roughly right around there to get about $16.49 as the same revenue that they had last year alone. Right, that's a pretty big increase here from where they were. That's about a 50% increase from last year alone, and that's basically what we're seeing here with this change in revenue from 1 year ago to now. Right, you would have to increase basically 50 some percent in that alone to get to where we would need to be right now, roughly. Okay, so looking at that, I looked at what the miners were making. Basically, if you had 1 exahash at that time per day, in April of 2022, you would have about $164,000, right around 165, you could say, thousand per day on those miners. Whereas now you're making about 76,000 per day, right? Pretty big difference there between those two. And if we know that a lot of miners were purchasing at least miners back in 2022, 2021 as well, and deliveries planned out through 2022, and some of them got pushed back out to 2023, which we're seeing a lot getting installed as well now. So if the miners actually grew, if they 2x their exahash from last year to now, and 3x it to now, 4x it right now, how that would impact the revenue that they actually had on it. And you can see here that if they grew their hash rate at least 2x, they would be pretty close to where they were making it last year. If they 3x'd it, they were making quite a bit more here, and 4x even more here. So 304,000 if you 4x'd your exahash. And then if we look at where Bitcoin price would have to be in 2024 and 2025, potentially after the halving event, well, at that point, Bitcoin would have to be probably closer to 150,000 for them to still make that same $16.49 per miner on a daily average, right? That's a big swing here from where we are, well, where we were just a year ago. So looking into another year, 2 years out, you're having to go up to quite a bit here, almost 3.5x in value just to get the same amount for the miners, given that the network hash rate is going to increase. So I'm including that kind of in here as well in this calculation as well. So we're right around 150,000, give or take a couple of thousand up or down on that, okay? To get back to that same one. So we can see here that in April 2023, you're making 76,000 on 1 exahash. And in 2024 and 2025, you'd be making about 164,000. If you just left everything alone, that would be basically the same thing as you did in 2022. So not much growth there as far as revenue is concerned. If you 2x'd it, now you're looking a little bit better. You're looking at 152,000 per day on 2 exahash, I guess you would say. 329 after the halving event. And you're back to basically what I'm trying to point out with these is if you're not growing as a miner, you're going to be stuck back here, back in 2022 numbers, whereas the miners that are growing, they are going to be generating a heck of a lot more revenue going forward based on that information. So with all of that being said and done, I hope this all makes sense for you guys, and I hope it's not too confusing, but there's a lot of numbers in here, as always, and a lot of the stuff is in my head, so I'm trying to explain it as best as I can. Okay, so what I did here on this table here is I took all of the miners that we do have. Where were they in April of 2022? Where are they supposed to be by the end of this year or early next year potentially? But these are a lot of the numbers that are represented of where they're supposed to be by the end of this year, right? So Hut 8 is kind of an interesting case here because they're going through a merger with USBTC potentially. So I increased them to 5 exahash, given that they're going to be merging with them. So there's, I think USBTC has about 2 something exahash of self-mining. So I'm giving them to get to maybe 5 exahash potentially, right? So that's that number here. So they would have about almost a 2x increase, not quite, but they would have a 1.76% or 1.76x increase, which is pretty close to having a pretty good growth here from just a year ago to being a year out. Okay, potentially Bitcoin goes to 150,000. I'm thinking Bitcoin is going to go a little bit more than that, but I just wanted to go on the lower end and to see where they could actually get to with the same revenue from last year. Okay, looking at Riot was at 4.7 exahash. They're going to be at 12.5. Plus, I think they're going to be getting a little bit of an added bonus with their immersion cooling. That's going to bump them up a little bit. But that's kind of where we have them right now. So that would be a 2.65x increase for them as well. So they're going to be somewhere between here. So that's definitely going to be a pretty good increase for them as well. Cypher at that time last year was not mining at all. They started out towards, well, for the self-mining really, it didn't really start out until December of 2022. So that number is kind of missing there because we were at 0. And they're supposed to get to about 5.56 exahash, I believe. But they're getting pretty close to that as it is right now. So they're kind of an unknown, but they are definitely growing nicely. So nonetheless, they're going to benefit from this as well. Hive was at 3.4, but this was also including their GPU miners. They were mining Ethereum, converting it to Bitcoin. They're currently, with everything that they reported as being purchased and going forward, is at 3.4. They haven't reported anything else as being, purchased going forward. So they are basically flat where they are right now. So they would be at, if they were making 164,000 a year ago, in the next year and a half or something like that, this is the best they could possibly do if they get back to the 3.4, roughly right around there. Marathon was at 3.9 exahash. They're supposed to get to 23. That would be almost a 6x increase for them, so that's really good there. DigiHost was at 920 petahash. They're supposed to get to about 1.1, 1.2 something. I know they reported, I believe they're going to be growing some more. They could possibly get to maybe 1.5, 2 exahash. Not sure. That would be at least a 2x for them at that point. Iris Energy was at basically 1 exahash. They're going to be about 4.5, potentially higher than that. So that's going to be at least a 4x for them. So that's really good for them as well. Argo was at 1.13 exahash. They're at 2.5. We don't know if they're going to grow anymore. So that at least is a 2.2x growth for them. BitDigital was at 574. They're supposed to get to 2.8. That's a 4.8 growth for them. DMG is at 600. They're supposed to get to 1.2 exahash. That's a 2x growth for them. Bitfarms was at 3.3 exahash. They're supposed to get to 7.5. That's at least a 2.2x for them as well. CleanSpark was at 2.4 exahash. They're supposed to get to about 15 to 16 exahash by the end of this year. That's going to be about a 6.5x growth for them. Mawson was at 1.4 exahash. They're supposed to get to 1.7. I'd like to see them grow some more. They're supposed to get more miners, or at least more capacity online, possibly grow more than that. But right now we have just 1.2x, so not much growth there. Definitely need to get to at least 2.8, if not higher, to at least get that 2x on them to see some growth for them. TerraWolf was at 182 petahash. They're relatively new miner as well. They've been doing a great job growing here this past year and into this year. They're supposed to get to about 5.5, 5.3, somewhere around there. That's going to be, well, it's going to be a huge growth for them, 27, almost 28x growth for them in that time frame if that happens. And then we got Sphere 3D was at 100 petahash. They're supposed to go to about 1.7. That'd be a 17x growth as well for them. We'll see if they can actually execute on this. They've had nothing but trouble getting there. And we got Core Scientific was at 8.9. They're supposed to be at 17. They've, I think, sold some miners as well, but not much. But they're supposed to be right around 17 exahash. So that would still be pretty close to at least a 2x. So they should have an improvement over at least from April of 2022 to April going into 2024 and 2025. Okay. So I hope this all makes sense, that growth is really imperative for these miners in order for them to grow their revenue. If you're not doing that, you're not going to be really growing it, and you're going to be stuck behind, and unfortunately probably may not survive. Okay. So let me know what you guys think of all these numbers here. I know there's a lot, and if you have any questions on it, I'll try to explain it. I've also did a Twitter post on this that's out there. You guys can take a look at it. I think it maybe explains it maybe a little bit better than I could explain it here with all of these numbers that are going. It provided less numbers in it, but I didn't go into detail as far as how that has an impact on how much the miners have to actually grow to get the benefit of it, even with Bitcoin coming down, hash rate going up, and the halving event, and after the halving event, Bitcoin going up. Okay. All right. So that's it for that one.